The board of directors of the Federal Reserve System is chosen by the president from a list prepared by the bankers themselves.
The process of finding a Greenspan replacement is ongoing and is being managed by a small group of people responsible for coming up with a list of nominees.
It's important that whomever I pick is viewed as an independent person from politics.
What is the proper relationship, what should be the proper relationship between a chairman of the Fed and a president of the United States?
Well, first of all, the Federal Reserve is an independent agency, and that means basically that there is no other agency of government which can overrule actions that we take. So long as that is in place and there is no evidence that the administration or the Congress or anybody else is requesting that we do things other than what we think is the appropriate thing, then what the relationships are don't frankly matter. And I've had very good relationships with presidents.
Now let's listen to this quote by Robert Reich, a member of President Clinton's cabinet and one of his most trusted advisors. The dirty little secret is that both houses of Congress are irrelevant. America's domestic policy is now being run by Alan Greenspan and the Federal Reserve. America's foreign policy is now being run by the International Monetary Fund. When the president decides to go to war, he no longer needs a declaration of war from Congress.
The president really has no control, nor does the Congress have any control over this cartel. It just has the appearance of control.
In the absence of the gold standard, there is no way to protect savings from confiscation through inflation. There is no safe store of value. Gold stands as a protector of property rights. Alan Greenspan, before he went to work for the Federal Reserve System. Now Alan Greenspan and the other central bankers want you to believe that the receipt, the paper, is the real money. This is nothing more than sleight of hand. It's a magician's trick. Because for them to maintain control over the government and the people, they have to convince you that this paper is really money, because that is the essence of their power and our powerlessness to maintain control over our own government. If the American people ever allow the banks to control the issuance of their currency, the banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. Thomas Jefferson. The cost of living is so high today because the Federal Reserve and the federal government have destroyed the purchasing power of the dollar. The dollar today is actually worth about 4 cents, despite the fact that the government, the Federal Reserve, and the media keep telling us that they're protecting the value of the dollar. This is a lie.
You don't have to worry.
That's good, because I work 3 jobs and I feel like I contribute.
You work 3 jobs.
3 jobs, yes.
Uniquely American, isn't it? I mean, that is fantastic.
Now let's watch the government add insult to injury to the people of New Orleans.
No one will be able to be armed. We will take all weapons.
That happened today in this wealthy neighborhood where homeowners had armed themselves to protect their mansions. Residents were handcuffed on the ground. In the end, police took their weapons but let them stay in their homes.
Wasn't that kind and generous of the government to allow people to stay in their own homes? How thoughtful. Of course, they couldn't defend themselves from looters.
For many of the police and guard troops, it is an uncomfortable job to do this in an American city.
You never expect to do this in your own country.
Walking up and down these streets, you don't want to think about the stuff that you're going to have to do.
We are losing our right to property. The government is getting more pretext to seize it, using the power to confiscate it with eminent domain. The asset forfeiture laws have proliferated. It's easier for the prosecutors to come in and make an accusation against you and confiscate your property even though they have no evidence that you've done anything wrong. Guilt or innocence doesn't really matter that much because it's very convenient for the government.
Unfortunately, what is being sold to the American people today as Americanism. If you peel off the label, you find so much similarity to what we were fighting against when we were fighting communism and Nazism and fascism.
The government's now putting a national ID card together and they want checkpoints.
We will be carrying our papers, and they have recommended there'll be checkpoints throughout the country.
Isn't that what Nazi Germany did that everybody in America was against? Checkpoints, proof. Papers, please. May I see your papers?
May we see your papers?
I don't think I have them on me.
In that case, we'll have to ask you to come along.
Wait, it's possible that yes. Here we are.
These papers expired 3 weeks ago. You'll have to come along. Halt! Halt!
Dr. Carol Quigley, professor from Georgetown University, who was also President Clinton's mentor, said in his book, Tragedy and Hope, the powers of financial capitalism had a far-reaching aim, nothing less than to create a world system of financial control in private hands, able to dominate the political system of each country and the economy of the world as a whole. And then President Clinton's Deputy Secretary of State, Strobe Talbot, said, in the next century, nations as we know it will be obsolete. All states will recognize a single global authority. Now pay close attention to this quote by David Rockefeller, and you'll understand what is happening in the world today and where the American people are heading as a nation. We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time Magazine, and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years. But now, the world is more sophisticated and prepared to march towards a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national autodetermination practiced in past centuries. David Rockefeller, a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, actually believes that we would be better off if he and his banker friends ran the world.
Benito Mussolini had a great quote about fascism. He said that fascism should be called corporatism more properly because it's the perfect merger of power between the corporation and the state. That's how he defined fascism. And that's what we're seeing here.
The media controls the information that a person gets. In various ways, they can make sure that the average American watching the tube or reading the newspaper is going to come out with a certain mindset. He's going to say, this is good, that's bad, and that's all they have to do.
You look at the ownership of corporate media in this country. Who owns CBS? Viacom? Who owns NBC? GE? Who owns ABC? Disney?
Americans have been taught to expect their salvation from government instead of recognizing government as the most dangerous threat they'll face in their lives.
And the United States putting together a constitution now for Iraq. You know, why don't we just give them ours? I mean, think about it. It served us well for over 200 years, and we don't appear to be using it anymore, so what the hell?
trap. Fiat money's a trap. Inflation's unlawful tax on the people, and that's a trap. The Patriot Act's a trap. War on terror's a trap. The justice system is clapping. The war on drugs is a trap. We in the trap, not talking about the one in the street, but the one set up by the corporate elite with the monetary system, Federal Reserve, and the fiat money they print by the sheet and lend out to our government and charge them interest rates. Still perpetuating never-ending debts. What this creates, printing money with no backing, so inflation is what happens. Unlawful state of taxation is what our nation is trapped in, and all this leads to a bubble effect when it busts. Expect big trouble, and yes, the people are left to pay off the debt with the taxes that the government collects. It's not complex, it's simple. Usury's considered sinful. That's why Jesus chased out money changers from his father's temple. It's time we do the same. It's time we end the Fed. It's time we bust out of this trap before we end up dead. Murder and slavery are fuel for the plutocracy. Permanent war economies, the way they build monopolies. War on drugs, war on terror. War is where the profit be. The rich keep getting richer by exploiting those in poverty. And the corporations running it is funded by the money that the people give the government. We in a voluntary prison. The cause of our affliction is the monetary system. Usury is a trap. Fiat money's a trap. Inflation's unlawful tax on the people, and that's a trap. The Patriot Act's a trap. War on terror's a trap. The justice system is clapping. The war on drugs is a trap.
Y'all know I'm repping Rusty Justice, that's my fam, and I'ma ride for 'em. Diesel automatic and Ghost Rider, we bomb on 'em. No escaping the truth. Sooner or later, you gon' have to wake up out your slumber. Stay asleep, remain a number. This is serious, this ain't a joke, I'm telling you. The trap is designed to keep your mind in chains and bury you. Corporations are the pimps, and we the prostitutes. So any rapper spitting truth, I show him love and I salute. This game is sinister, twisted full of politics. I never make apologies for seeking truth and repping it. Stand tall while the rest fall. Life is full of broken dreams. Get knocked down, I get back up, and I go hard, picking up steam. Haters hate, let them do it. Ain't no way they can stop the movement. I go hard to my last breath, and I'ma stay that way till there's nothing left. No sight, no sound, flesh decay laying in the ground. But while I'm here, I'ma make it clear. Power to the people, this all year.